This week in Louisiana agriculture.
Disasters are happening across the state while farmers converge in New Orleans for the annual Farm Bureau Convention. I'm Avery Davidson with that story ahead.
I'm AJ Sabine here in New Orleans. I'll have the latest on the progress at the Port of Greater Baton Rouge.
And federal regulations and budget concerns overshadow much of the discussion at the 89th annual meeting of the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. Hello everyone, I'm Michael Dana. Thanks so much for joining us. Our program this week is coming to you from the Cabildo in the heart of New Orleans. Built in 1795, the Cabildo was the site of the Louisiana Purchase Transfer ceremonies in 1803 and is now the flagship building of the Louisiana State Museum Historical Complex. We'll tell you more about this historic Louisiana landmark later on in the program. The Crescent City was again the site of the annual Louisiana Farm Bureau Convention. More than 1,200 farmers and their families turned out for the four-day conference. On the minds of many farmers are the uncertainties facing them as harvest season draws near. 2011 has been another difficult year for farmers and ranchers. This week in Louisiana Agriculture's Avery Davidson begins our convention coverage with a look at the challenges farmers are facing right now.
If the saying is true that still waters run deep, then you would not be surprised to learn that this newly formed lake in Paul Brown's cotton field is 95 feet deep. It was the raging Mississippi River which scoured that hole when it topped and tore through the inner levee at Bunch's Bend in East Carroll Parish.
Unbelievable.
Brown says the river also dumped 15 feet of sand over about 300 acres of his best cotton fields.
I never did think it'd be destroyed like this. Never in my life.
It connects right here with...
Levee Board President Reynold Minsky says this 600-foot gash is not the only breach in this 99-year-old levee. As you can see, fish are able to swim through right here as well. Minsky says overall the river destroyed nearly a mile of the inner levee and that it will cost between $5 and $10 million to repair the damage.
If we can do it, I think we need to at least raise these levees at least 4 feet above where they are today.
That would better protect 12,000 acres of fertile farmland in the state's poorest parish. Where the water has receded, farmers are already trying to plant soybeans and milo, but they're going to face the other extreme, drought. It's that combination of these disasters which gets the attention of Louisiana Farm Bureau President Ronnie Anderson at the 89th Annual Convention. He says it's becoming all too commonplace for there to be a disaster at the same time as the state's largest meeting of farmers and ranchers.
We go from hurricanes to oil spills to floods to... And this year, what's really amazing and the thing that really baffles people around the country is we're suffering through a flood and a drought at the same time. And a lot of it in the same fields, the same farmers. Part of their farmland is underwater or was underwater, and it was damaged or delayed planting because of the floods. And the rest of the field is outside of that. Is record droughts right now.
This is what's scoured out here.
Commissioner of Agriculture and Forestry Dr. Mike Strain toured the damaged levees before attending the Farm Bureau Convention. He says Louisiana's history with disasters makes our farmers better able to recover.
We all are all attuned to the needs and the demands of emergency situations, and also we've had a great deal of experience in dealing with the aftermath, including the financing of projects to put the land and the businesses and our people, back into business.
Our hope is that we can repair the levee and put it back in production. What we can, I don't know if we can afford to put everything back in production, especially where the sand is piled, but hopefully we can get it back under a protected type environment.
Because as long as Brown and other farmers are able to plant crops on this land, they will. In East Carroll Parish, I'm Avery Davidson for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
Here in New Orleans, Commissioner Strain met with Reynold Minsky to discuss funding options to rebuild the inner levees there in East Carroll Parish. Minsky says he's optimistic that Washington will come through with the necessary funds. Progress at the Port of Greater Baton Rouge grabbed the attention of more than 100 farmers who packed the Soybean, Wheat, and Feed Grains Conference during this year's 89th annual meeting. As This Week in Louisiana Agriculture's AJ Sabine shows us, Louis Dreyfus Commodities, who secured a lease at the port earlier this year, revealed its plans to renovate the 55-year-old elevator.
Louisiana grain producers piled in to hear construction head Brad Johannes with Louis Dreyfus Commodities outline plans to update the grain elevator at the Port of Greater Baton Rouge. Johannes told about 100 Louisiana grain producers that there will be very little changes at the port during this year's harvest, but countered that it could be difficult to transform the 55-year-old elevator into a flagship grain export facility.
Construction is never an easy process, and it's really especially on a brown field. It's not a straight line, but we're trying to go through a process of getting all our permits lined out on the front end and having a plan with the contractor to smooth things out as much as possible.
The Dreyfus plan includes shutting down the facility to reline several of the large grain storage bins on the site. Additionally, Johannes says the elevator will be improved to accommodate large Panamax vessels, which could bring as much as 5 million tons of Louisiana grain around the world.
It's kind of a piece that we didn't have in our global network, was the Center Gulf or New Orleans market, and so adding that makes our other facilities we're able to serve that much more of the market globally.
Later, former Farm Bureau Marketing Director David Bollock, who now serves as commercial manager for Dreyfus, answered several questions from farmers, including whether Dreyfus would be competing against Farm Bureau for grain.
We will not be competing with any producer or dealer in this state here. We're going to look at all of them as customers. I think when you look at the dealers in this state, and there aren't that many of them, you know, they bring something to the table that you don't get when you're going direct to farmers. They deal in volume, and I mean, there's 2 or 3 considerations you have that for the, rather than trying to, distance yourself from them, I think you embrace the dealers in this state here.
After the presentation, farmers liked what they heard.
Well, I think we're going to be hindered for the next year with it, but they got major expenditures, so they're losing income. So it's a joint venture. We're all going to have to sacrifice something, period.
It's expected to take nearly a year to finish the improvements at the port in anticipation of the fall harvest of 2012. In New Orleans, I'm A.J. Sabine for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
Brad Johannes says Dreyfus has begun the permitting process in anticipation of those renovations, which are scheduled for the elevator later this fall. Well, rice farmers across the country grow more than 20 billion pounds of their commodity a year. For Louisiana, the rice industry has an economic impact of more than $500 million. That's why rice growers are keeping a close eye on what's going on in Washington right now. Reese Langley with the USA Rice Federation told farmers at the Rice Conference that while their industry lost a strong ally when Arkansas Senator Blanche Lincoln lost her bid for re-election, others are stepping up to fight on behalf of the needs of rice farmers. Langley said it appears production agriculture is under attack by federal regulation. He says the biggest threat to the rice industry is a plan by the Environmental Protection Agency to extend protections under the Clean Water Act to nearly all freshwater sources across the country.
Anything that impacts water resources and water availability is going to be a real issue for us.
Langley says the most important thing rice farmers can do right now to prevent the EPA's plan is to contact their member of Congress. Well, contacting their senator was easy for farmers at the 89th Annual Louisiana Farm Bureau Convention. Senator David Bitter spoke to the voting delegate session and even gave out his cell phone number so that farmers could contact him day or night. Bitter echoed much of Reese Langley's message about federal regulation, but he also spoke at length about the federal budget. Bitter says he's hoping Congress will soon approve a plan to cut trillions of dollars of spending from the budget. While agriculture has taken more than its fair share of cuts, Bitter says it's now time to start looking at the real source of the country's budget problems: social programs.
This is a very tough budget situation, so any spending program in sight is going to be on the table up for discussion. However, when that applies to the Farm Bill, I'm going to bring out the facts and lay out the facts, which include the fact that the true ag side of the Farm Bill, starting with the commodity program, has shrunk significantly in recent years.
The first thing I would tell you is it wasn't a good thing.
Louisiana Department of Natural Resources Secretary Scott Angel also spoke to the voting delegates. While there has been speculation Angel may run for either Lieutenant Governor or the Secretary of State's office, Angel did not announce his candidacy. He says he plans to make a decision about his political future in the coming weeks. Changes to the temporary agricultural guest worker program regulations in Washington have made it more difficult for Louisiana farmers to get the help they need. According to a former U.S. Department of Labor Undersecretary, Leon Segura, the Obama administration has made both the H-2A and H-2B guest worker programs more bureaucratic and expensive. Segura, who now works as a labor and employment attorney in Washington, says there aren't enough American workers to fill many of the available jobs on the farm, even in the face of high national unemployment.
The reform of the H-2A and H-2B programs are vitally important, not just for farmers, but for all of American agriculture. And it really comes down to an issue of where Americans are going to get their food. And if there isn't available labor, a reliable supply of labor to harvest our crops, then increasingly agricultural production is going to move abroad.
Segura spoke to about 100 Louisiana farmers during the Labor and Environmental Conference held here in New Orleans. LSU Ag Center researchers told farmers here that they could soon be paying more for a carton of eggs at the grocery store. The United Egg Producers and the Humane Society of the United States reached an agreement on a federal law to require larger cage sizes for laying hens. Egg producers estimate the changes will cost the industry more than $4 billion over the next 10 years. The national standards will require egg producers to expand cage sizes from the current 67 square inches to 144 inches for each hen. LSU Ag Center professor Teresa Laverne says the change not only will cost producers more to raise those eggs, but you, the consumer, will pay more for the carton of eggs you buy.
Today we are feeding the United States with what we produce here in the United States as far as egg production. We are feeding ourselves, but we would not be able to do that under these new regulations unless we can increase our housing.
Now, Laverne says the new federal rule could also increase chances for salmonella contamination in both the hens and their eggs. The ConAgra Lamb Weston sweet potato processing plant is now operating 24 hours a day and meeting all of the company's expectations. That's what Vice President of Marketing Helene Clark told specialty crop farmers at this conference. Clark says the company's relationship with the LSU Ag Center's Sweet Potato Research Station is helping that success, but she admits the company should have done more homework before building the $210 million facility. That's because the company cannot accept sweet potatoes from areas impacted by the sweet potato weevil. Those sweet potatoes are marked with a pink tag, and farmers are not allowed to ship them outside the quarantine area. Growers said if ConAgra Lamb Weston had built the plant 50 miles away from Delhi in the quarantined area, the company could accept sweet potatoes from anywhere, even those grown outside the quarantine. Clark says the company is working to remedy that problem.
We get the fact that you can't afford to do anything that would endanger other growers and the crops, but we think there are things that can be done to make that palatable for everybody. And in particular, as we continue to grow our business and we continue to need more and more sweet potatoes, it's good for everybody. So we're looking for win-win solutions.
Now, the pink tag quarantine area includes 4,000 acres of sweet potatoes here in Louisiana. Well, still to come on This Week in Louisiana Agriculture. In the nation's top city for eating out, freshness counts. And we'll show you why chefs count on Louisiana farmers to keep them on top of their game. Stay with us. Welcome back to this special edition of This Week in Louisiana Agriculture from the Cabildo here in downtown New Orleans. Nearly 8 million people visited the Crescent City in 2009. Undoubtedly, many of them came for the great food you can find nowhere else. As This Week in Louisiana Agriculture's Avery Davidson shows us, the flavor of New Orleans comes from local farmers and fishermen.
Just pretty simple, pretty straightforward.
It's here in the kitchen where Ben Thibodeau is at home. As chef de cuisine at Dickie Brennan's Palace Cafe in New Orleans, Thibodeau is responsible for coming up with the tastiest items on the menu. That's why he depends upon Sandy Sharp with Covey Rice Farms out of Husser, Louisiana, to provide him with the freshest vegetables available.
We grow so many different vegetables here in Louisiana that it would be a shame to outsource to other parts of the country or other countries.
Here you see just a few of the 150 different varieties Sharp and his partners at Covey Rice grow on their farm. Sharp says he worked closely with a chef like Thibodeau to decide which tomatoes, squash, and greens to grow.
The advantage that we had is we never farmed before, so we didn't have any preconceived notions of how to do it or what would work.
At Palace Cafe, Thibodeau loves to show off what local products he uses, either by posting them on a blackboard or right on the menu.
I just like to be able to kind of throw it in other people's faces. Like, we do use local products. We use them a lot. We use them in the majority of all of our dishes. And it's a choice that we make.
Both Thibodeau and Sharp say they are proud of that choice because it goes beyond the relationship of farmer and chef.
It's an investment. It's an investment in the people in the community. It's an investment in the people around here who are still choosing to grow vegetables, you know.
An investment that pays dividends with every bite. In New Orleans, I'm Avery Davidson for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
Sandy Sharp says Covey Rise started as a pen-raised quail shooting preserve, but that he and his partners 2 years ago decided to begin growing specialty vegetables. Kristen Oakes now joins us with this week's Ag Minute. And Kristen, it appears that you have found some fun here during this Farm Bureau convention at none other than the renowned Bourbon Street.
Well, of course, Mike, and you know I'm right here in the heart of the French Quarter at the world-famous Pat O'Brien's, where their motto is, have fun. And for visitors here in the Crescent City, there's no better fun tradition than the Pat O Hurricane.
Stirred, not shaken. The French Quarter staple, Pat O'Brien's, knows the best way to serve up some fun. For more than 60 years, this New Orleans bar has laid claim to one of the city's most iconic cocktails, the Hurricane. But the history of the Hurricane is a story of logic. During World War II, whiskey was in short supply, so liquor salesmen would require bar owners to purchase 50 cases of the more abundant rum to buy 1 case of whiskey. New Orleans bar owner Pat O'Brien came up with a fruity cocktail to use up their rum supply, and with a strong base of light and dark rums, O'Brien added a shot of fruity sweet syrup and finished it off with a slice of orange and a cherry on top. He served up the potent red drink in a hurricane lamp-shaped glass, and the Hurricane was born. The drink caught on, and it's been a mainstay in the French Quarter ever since. Last year, more than 8 million folks visited the Big Easy to get a taste of the world-famous Hurricane. While many local bars have tried to recreate the drink, Crescent City visitors know it's only here at Pat O's where you can drink up the original and, of course, have fun.
And the famous Pat O'Brien Hurricane glass is one of the most sought-after souvenirs in the New Orleans area. Now moving on to TWILA trivia. Last time I asked you, which city's hot dog has the most toppings? Loaded down with mustard, onions, peppers, relish, and pickles, the answer is B, Chicago. For this week's trivia, tourism contributes how much money on average each year to the New Orleans economy? Is it A, $2 billion, B, $4 billion, or C, $7 billion? Log on to our website, twilatv.org, submit your answer, and we'll send one winner a special edition of a New Orleans TWILA prize pack. Still to come on This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, we'll have all the winners of the 89th Annual Convention. Stay with us.
Welcome back to This Week in Louisiana Agriculture from the Crescent City. We are here at the Cabildo, which today is the home of the Louisiana State Museum. Completed in 1799, it was the seat of the Spanish municipal government when Spain owned Louisiana, and it was in this very room in 1803 that the Louisiana Purchase was signed. Over the years, the building has served as the home of the Louisiana Supreme Court, and in 1911 became the official museum of Louisiana. In 1988, the Cabildo was severely damaged by fire, but this landmark building was authentically restored and even survived Hurricane Katrina. In fact, the Louisiana State Police used the building as its command post during the post-storm recovery efforts. Well, of course, the Farm Bureau Convention is a time to recognize the accomplishments of parish farm bureaus and others who have worked so hard over the last 12 months promoting agriculture. The highest honor a parish farm bureau can receive is the President's Trophy.
And this year, that parish is St. Landry Parish.
This year's winner was the St. Landry Parish Farm Bureau. Parish President Carlos Palazola accepted the award from Farm Bureau President Ronnie Anderson.
It's a team effort. We have a very hard-working parish, and I am so proud to represent them tonight. I can't remember us ever winning the trophy. It's something that we had talked about many times and really never thought it would happen. We're so proud to be here.
This year's Young Farmer and Rancher Achievement Award winners were Marty and Crystal Wooldridge of Oil City in Caddo Parish. The Wooldridges operate a 500-head cow-calf operation. The couple walked away with a $35,000 credit towards the purchase of a General Motors vehicle of their choice, courtesy of the Southern Farm Bureau Casualty Insurance Company. They also received cash awards, equipment rentals from H&E Equipment, and a host of other prizes.
Excited.
It's a wow factor, unbelievable, but at the same time, the most humbling thing that's ever happened to us.
The couple will travel to Honolulu in January to compete for the national title during the 93rd annual meeting of the American Farm Bureau. Dawn Rosinski of Lafayette Parish was named the Outstanding Young Farm Woman for 2011. She received a $2,000 Office Depot gift certificate, a $1,000 U.S. savings bond from the BASF Corporation, and a $1,500 equipment rental from H&E Equipment. Wilson Judice of St. Mary Parish won this year's discussion meet. Judice and 3 other finalists tackled the subject of renewable energy policies here in the U.S. Judice received a host of prizes for his victory, including this John Deere Gator utility vehicle, courtesy of the Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance Company. He also received savings bonds from the Syngenta and Gowan Company, cash prizes, and a $1,500 equipment rental from H&E Equipment. This year's Excellence in Agriculture Award was presented to Russell and Amelia Kent of Tangipahoa Parish. The award is presented to a young farmer or farm couple who exhibit leadership in both Farm Bureau and agriculture as a whole. The Kents received cash awards as well as an H&E equipment rental. The couple will compete for the national title at the American Farm Bureau's convention in Honolulu in January. This year's YF&R Award of Merit was presented to both the Tangipahoa Parish YF&R Committee and the West Baton Rouge Parish Young Farmers and Ranchers Committee. This year's Women's Leadership Committee Award of Excellence was presented to the Avoyelles Parish Farm Bureau's Women's Committee. Accepting the award was Peggy Hess. This year, the Farm Bureau's Ag in the Classroom program recognized its Teacher of the Year. Lisa Wiggins of Northwestern's Lab School in Natchitoches was this year's winner. Wiggins accepted the award from AITC Chairperson Mary Ledden Danos and Farm Bureau President Ronnie Anderson. This year's talent contest drew a range of entertaining performances by Farm Bureau young people. Jalee Chauvin of Lafourche Parish topped the senior division with a guitar solo titled Heavenly Day.
No way, no way, oh, heavenly day. What makes you think he believes?
And dancing her way to the top of the junior talent division was Marley Blanchard of St. Martin Parish. She performed a dance routine to the song My Boyfriend's Back. The winner of this year's talk meet was Austin Bordelon of Avoyelles Parish. This year's topic was, do U.S. consumers appreciate the importance of domestically produced food?
Some people find the farmers are ambitious.
And the culmination of the Farm Bureau convention is the crowning of Miss Farm Bureau.
It's Jessie Elizabeth Brown.
Jessie Elizabeth Brough of St. Martinville was crowned the 2011 Louisiana Farm Bureau Queen. Brough, 19, competed against 28 other local parish Farm Bureau queens to take the title. Brough currently attends the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. She is the daughter of John and Liz Brough. First runner-up in the contest was Caitlin Palmer of Plaquemines Parish. Second runner-up was Kaylee Bobeth of Avoyelles Parish. And all the queen contestants chose Caitlin Duhan of Vermilion Parish, Miss Congeniality. For a complete list of winners from the 89th Annual Farm Bureau Convention and to see lots of photographs, you can click on over to our website at twilatv.org. That does it for this edition of This Week in Louisiana Agriculture from the Cabildo. Join us again next week as we tell you about an initiative to bring broadband connectivity to 97% of Louisiana. The LSU Ag Center and 2 of the nation's largest telecommunications companies join forces to help farmers and rural residents connect to the internet via high speed. For all of us here at This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, I'm Michael Dana. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Hope to see you again right here next week.